And I think we'll first do a little introduction so that people know, who it is that we have today as a guest. I think we'll start with how it is that we met, and that was a few years ago, essentially through the dancing community. You and I met, I want to say through Salsa Loca, which is a club that we have at Sac State. I think we'll get a little bit more into that. Rami, a few things that I know about yourself. So you are currently the co-founder of Dance on the Edge, which is a series of dancing events that we have here in Sacramento. We'll go a lot more into that. I know that you do have your own podcast, Mindset Rebooted, another big thing that I really want to go into. And if I'm not mistaken, from the last conversation that we had, you recently started a new job. I believe you are doing this full time. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, so last time we were talking about a tech job, but actually went into a different industry.
Okay.
But we could get into that too.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
apologize for cutting you off on intro. I didn't know that was an intro.
No, not at all, not at all. That's why I was asking you because I was unsure a little bit about that one because last time that we talked, you were mentioning how you were looking into different options. So we'll definitely get a lot more into that. Um, but yeah. So with that being said, I do want to go right into a specific topic with you, Rami, and that is dance on the edge. These dancing events that you have been putting together here in Sacramento. There's several different things that I want to tackle with this because, as I stated initially, I believe this is a huge thing. When one goes into what goes into an event is something that we don't normally think about. Someone that's just coming to an event as such, you normally get there, but we never really sit and think about what happens behind the scenes for somebody, to create an event. Just with dancing on the edge over the years, I've seen the evolution with it myself, from having the DJs to the dancing instructors, the vendors now that you have, the advertisement for the events. There's just so many different components that play into creating something as such. So one, personally, big props for me because I know this is something that takes a lot of work and I'm sure it comes with a lot of challenges. And two, I know that there's a lot of people out there who have ideas about putting maybe some type of event together themselves or creating some type of business or working on a project, but because of many reasons, they don't go for it. So I'm seeing this as a perfect opportunity to hear directly from someone who at some point may have, thought about this idea or together with a group of people or with someone else thought about it and you're currently putting it together and making that which was a vision at one point a reality now. So let's start from the beginning. I want to say, kind of walk us through of how it is it that you initially, thought about Dance on the Edge and why that came about, and maybe give us a little walkthrough of the journey of what it's been now over the years.
Yeah, dude. So if we go to the very origin, so I've been doing dance events, Latin dance events since college. So as a freshman, I went to Sacramento State and
Mm.
I joined the salsa club there. And then from there, within a month, they're like, all right, you're gonna teach merengue. And I'm like, I never taught. And so that led to the experience of leading other people in learning these dances. And while I was at Sac State, my degree is in recreation park tourist administration. So that's a lot of fancy words for really it's just for fun. My degree is in fun. So your outdoor recreation, your theme park experiences, your tourism, your hotel experiences, those are what the degree like umbrella falls under.
Mm.
And so while I was teaching classes and being a club officer at the salsa club, I was also thinking, how do I make the experience a lot of fun for people? Because to me, it's boring to just take a class unless you're a serious dancer. It's boring to do a serious dance class, which is very technical and stuff like that. Because what I noticed in the salsa club, it was really not a technical experience. It was more of a, hey, we want to just get everyone to feel good, and because we're excited about seeing each other and dancing, we want to learn more dance moves. So not necessarily I want to learn dance moves first, and then this is a social interaction after. It's social first and then dance moves. If that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's where my mindset was, and since 2009, all the way up to when I got on board with Dance on the Edge, that was 2009 to 2016, I believe. So I was doing my own events all throughout those times, and then finally, 2016 or 17, I can't remember which year exactly, there was a group, they were called Bachata on the Edge. They're the original idea makers for what is now known as Dance on the Edge.
It was
And
bachata on the edge?
yeah, on the edge. So it's a DA instead of the. They're like, we're
Oh,
Bachata
okay,
on
yeah,
the edge,
the
adding
edge,
a little slang to it. And it was really just a group of friends, small group of friends that I know where they were playing Pokemon Go, and then they ended up being in old Sacramento because of Pokemon Go.
okay.
And they were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to dance somewhere out here?
Mhm.
And then so they just did that. They created a Facebook event page, invited some of their friends. 20 people showed up, I think, on the first time. And then they're like, all right, let's try it again next month. And then 40 people showed up, and it just kept building. Eventually, they asked me to come out because I was in LA at the time. They asked me to come up to teach, and try and help promote it. And I came up, and I was like, dude, this is amazing. And then fast forward one more year is when I moved back up to Sacramento, and they asked me to be part of the team. And so that's how I got involved with what is now known as Dance on the Edge.
Okay.
So even though I'm called co-founder for Dance on the Edge, the co-founder really is for the incorporated or the rebranded version of what Dance on the Edge used to
Yeah, yeah,
be.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I got into that, and one the thing about me, because I had been doing events for so long, and not successful events in the financial side or business side, but just knowing how to do events, hosting socials and stuff. I was very big on like, well, if I'm gonna join the team, I'm gonna want to increase frequency because they were doing it maybe once a month in one location, and I was like, I want to do more than once a month. I want to increase attendance rates. I want to increase experiences, and so they were open to that idea when I got into the team, and then from there, I joined officially in 2018, I think, as we are now called. But we went from bachata on the edge to dance on the edge.
Okay.
Um, and we did that name change because we want to open it up, not just bachata dancers. We wanted to open it up so that anyone who wants to do some kind of dancing could show up.
Yeah.
Right now, we're more known for Latin dancing, but the big vision is that we're going to be known for all kinds of dancing.
Mm.
So that's why it's a very, very general term, dance on the edge.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then from there, it just grew. So we started off on a low island in Old Sac. It's right next to the if you cross the street from Old Sac, there's that hotel, and then that hotel has that little um, docking station where old boats used to dock and be at, but no one uses it. So that's where it started. Bachata on the Egg started, and it's go ahead.
Is that the bottom part of like by the Delta King, but on the
So it's on the other side of the bridge.
oh on the other oh okay,
Yeah,
okay.
so there's docking station on the other side of the bridge. It
Yeah,
was
I found
not being used. So when Bachata on the Edge first started, that's where it was at.
yeah.
And it was getting to a point where it started sinking because too many people were showing up.
Wow, okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So we moved it over officially to the old Sac area that you know it now
Yeah,
because we found out that hey, we need to actually apply for permits for doing these kind of events. Because before it was just a pop up, we didn't know anything. We're just like, hey, just bring the speakers. If we find a power outlet, we'll just plug it in and just dance. So
yeah,
it was an informal organization. And then now we moved to the old Sac. We started working with the district directors for which area we could be in. And first we were in front of the Railroad Museum. We closed out that street. And so that was like a street party. And then because that was when they were renovating the Embarcadero, which is the space you see in front of Delta King,
mhm,
they're like, hey, we're done renovating this. Do you want to use this instead? Because they're trying to activate that space. And so Dance on the Edge was actually the first people to do something in that space right after they renovated too.
yeah.
And then now we fast forward 5 years later as Dance on the Edge, and it's what you see today.
And interesting. That's interesting. Kind of history with Dance on the Edge, which used to be bachata on the edge. I didn't know that part, or I also didn't know that you were all that it has started on the other side of the bridge. I know exactly where you're talking about that area.
Mhm.
I think I started coming around more so like in 2019. I want to say,
Yes,
but yeah,
2019 is when we really kicked off. So the
yeah,
years before was always like a monthly social for like
yeah.
4 months or whatever. 2019, we were doing monthly socials in Old Sac. We were doing monthly socials in Midtown
Mhm.
Sacramento and monthly socials. Um, where was the other place? We were in three different locations, like every month
Yeah,
in 2019. And then we also did stuff at the Capitol steps. So we
That's
really were like increasing our capacity at that
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. And I mean, you see it with the dancing community in Sacramento. I feel like it has grown a lot over the years. So these are, the events have grown so much because of the interest that people have, especially since a free event, the ones that are outside. Um, but what's coming to mind right now is that so you started doing events prior to even joining what at the time was Bachata on the Edge. Those were your personal were you doing that with somebody else? What did that look like? Was it kind of like Dance on the Edge?
Yeah. So outside of Salsa Loca, which is a salsa club, because I
Yeah.
became the president there, right? So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
event planning there. Excuse me. I was doing with Juan Solis and Miguel Zaragoza, who was then president at, excuse me, UC Davis. We
Mhm.
did Bachata Conmigo, which was a monthly social at Spotlight Dance Studios.
Okay.
So in 2010, there was only one place in town that had DJs that would play bachata for social dance. You couldn't find bachata if you were trying to dance.
Yeah.
If you went to, there used to be a spot called the Station or Harlow's. They will maybe play one bachata song for the whole
Wow.
night, and it
Yeah.
was the lamest bachata song because it's just the most mainstream Aventura song or Prince
Yeah.
Royce song at the time. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, they're like no disrespect, they're awesome songs, but you're as a bachata dancer, you're like, this is lame,
Yeah.
right? Because you want more of the underground stuff. And so that place that was that only the only place that was doing bachata socials as a primary activity, they shut down.
Mhm.
And that was when me, Juan Solis, Miguel Zaragoza again, we were really big fans of bachata, and we're like, well, where else can we dance bachata? If no one is gonna do it, we'll do it ourselves. And we partnered with Spotlight Dance Studios to actually host the Bachata Conmigo for 4 years there. It's a monthly social that we did over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's experiences there, and then random pop-up experiences too for other events that I would be on board as a team member or an assistant event planner or something like that. So over the years, lots of experience in like trying to do like bootstrap event planning and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So pretty much for the past 13 to what, 15 years, you've been involved with the dancing community, especially in what 2009, 2010, when you started taking like leadership roles with either the clubs or creating these events. That's a lot of commitment. So the first thing that comes to mind, what what were you trying to get out of that? Like, what was your motivation? What has been to this day? Like, what is it? Because to stay consistent with something like that, and especially the amount of work that comes behind putting these events together, having to find how to get the permits and the space for that. Like, I feel like that takes a lot out of you. Like, you have to commit a lot to it. Uh, like, what do you get out of that? Like, what's your main purpose in being taking those leadership roles, which again is like the most what I would find to be the most challenging part for someone to really take the initiative to do that, to get to that point where it's like I'm the one putting or helping put these events together, just having it stay alive.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So the main motivation behind me being active in this industry has changed over the years.
Okay.
So when I first was with Salsa Loca, like when I was in school, dude, at Sac State, I wasn't there for school. I was the first person of my family to go to school.
Yeah.
So like I I had freedom to do whatever I want because no one in my family knew what to expect from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But before you continue on that
Yeah.
one, so you came from SoCal, yeah? You mentioned you were in LA.
Yeah.
Are you born and raised in SoCal?
Yeah. I'm born and raised in LA.
Okay, sweet, sweet. All right. Just for
Yes.
context. But
No,
yeah,
you're
so
good. So, all right. So to put it to more clarity, so I had grades where I should be a UC or private 4 year college
okay.
student, but I did not want to do no damn essay. I didn't want to take the SAT2s or the ACTs in addition to the SAT, and like so that's why I chose Sac State because it was far away. I didn't have to write a freaking essay, and I got accepted a few days later after submitting my online application. I didn't ask for any help. I didn't ask for a counselor to show me how to apply on the CSU application website or any
Yeah,
of that. I didn't look into grants. I didn't look into scholarships. I was just like, I'm over school. I don't even care about it.
that's crazy.
So that's how I got to Sac State.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how you ended up in North California.
Yeah. So going back to your question, what's the motivation behind it? initially the motivation was that this was just fun for me, my freedom, my thing to do. I woke up thinking about the Salsa Loca Club and I went to sleep thinking about Salsa Loca Club.
Mhm.
That in addition to the Unique Programs Club, which I was very active as a volunteer. And also I worked on campus for campus recreation. So the University Union and the Well, I had an active role with them as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So I was mainly at school for part-time work and for the clubs. And then I played rugby club too. That was where my focus was. Like my GPA at Sac State tanked because I didn't care about academics. I was just like, I would take random classes just because I was like, I'll just take it just because I'm curious about this subject. It doesn't matter to me because I know I'll graduate anyway. Because
yeah,
I'm the academic in me knows I could just pass whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a high grade or low grade. I know how to pass.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's
and
it.
so
Mm.
go ahead.
No, no, I was gonna say, so you were there more for the extracurricular activities that you could do, kind of like the what you were going to be exposed to through college.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I was there for. And so while I was the first 4, maybe 6 years as an event planner was more of how can I do events that are fun for me?
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Huh.
So it was very selfish, motivated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then as I kept doing it, what happened was a lot of festival promoters or other bigger names would reach out to me to maybe be an instructor for their events or to help host events at their locations. And so I started getting more of the spotlight exposure. And I quickly found out I hated it. I hated being the one who always taught. I hated being the one who's always on the mic. But I know that at a certain point, you have to be that person because that's how you build awareness, right? Once you build awareness and then you have a team, then you could start dispersing that awareness amongst a team. But there's a responsibility that you have to take on if you want to build a brand. And so if you're a face of a brand or a team, there's in addition to the paperwork responsibilities, the financial responsibilities, there's also the public image responsibilities that I think a lot of people are not aware of when they want to become business owners.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we fast forward from the selfish, greedy point of me being a dancer, just wants to have places to go dancing, into I hate freaking dance events. I don't want to do it. I don't want anything to do with it as an instructor, as a face, but I'm still here because I know I'm good at it.
Mm.
And I know that it helps a lot of other people. So at that point, it was an unselfish motivation because I know people would get excited to go dancing, or if they're discovering dance for the first time through an activity that I led, I knew that I had a high success rate to make them come back.
Yeah.
So when I would be teaching at the Grad in Davis, which was one of the bigger salsa clubs, right?
Yeah.
For
Oh,
the college students,
yeah.
they had a Tuesday, Thursday, and a Saturday, and I was one of the main promoters for that, besides Juan and besides Miguel.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I was one of the teachers for it, anyone who took my class, they're gonna be so excited that they're gonna try and join another club or they're gonna come back again because I use that experience from studying RPTA in college
Yeah.
and actually putting it into play when I was in Salsa Local already. So I had like work experience before I graduated in that
Yeah.
sense.
I just want to comment real quick.
Yeah.
I know that some people, even when they listen to this too, right now, you mentioned the grad, are gonna be is gonna be some nostalgia behind that because I'll include myself in that. That was the place. So many people knew about it. And it's a bummer that it closed down. But it's dope that I remember now that you were involved with that club as well. Pretty much teaching and holding it down together as well. That's so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like to be frank, it's not just me. Whatever credits I have is also because of Juan Solis and because
Mhm.
of Miguel Zaragoza. Yeah, without those guys, because we all ended up being solo people. Because after Bachata Conmigo ended, we all kind of did our own things, but always worked around each other and supported each other's solo careers, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like whatever successes you see that I have, a lot of it originated from them.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so right now, going back to your original question, what's the motivation? Right now, the motivation is an unselfish motivation because I knew other people would have a great time through what I was doing.
Yeah.
And now we're at what's current. So I'll just say there were 3 phases: selfish phase, unselfish phase, and now I want to fuck up the industry phase. Uh, am I
Okay.
allowed to cuss in this podcast?
No, yeah, bro. Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
And
No,
I apologize for the listeners if I'm getting too in depth, because I get really nerdy about this stuff. So if I
yeah.
get too in depth, slow me down.
This is the theme, bro, that keep in mind that some people that are going to be listening to this might be looking at this for a way to help them start something that they want to do. So I feel like the more you go in depth with certain things, the better it's going to be for a lot of us to really be like, okay, that's what comes in the little intricacies of, starting something or maintaining the motivation for something such as, these community events. So, hey, no, by all means. And yeah, you can cuss all you want, my guy.
Perfect. Okay.
Do your thing.
So I'm in the phase of I want to fuck up the industry, and
And
the
what,
reason
yeah,
huh?
I was gonna say, what do you mean by that? Because that was a big comment
No,
right there.
no.
I'm
And
like,
so I say that because the Latin dance industry is behind all the other industries. We're behind the fitness industry. We're behind the ballroom dance industry in terms of marketability, in terms of financiability, and in terms of market, in terms of how much people are spending in the Latin dance industry, at least in the US.
yeah.
And so I want to fuck it up for the studio owners and the current promoters because they're promoting their studio lessons and their socials as if it's 20 years ago, as if when I just started 10, 15 years ago. And I'm like, you guys are not promoting to get new faces to show up. No one's going to, you're only marketing your socials and your lessons that you host every week, every month is for dancers only. So if you want to, so there's a problem with that because if it's only for dancers only, eventually people leave. People stop dancing. But if you're not recruiting new people, how is there going to be a dance community?
Mm.
If you're only marketing to dancers, they're
Oh,
already going to be there because they're dancers. So there's, in my opinion, they haven't seen the need to attract new people, attract new talents, get interest in Latin dancing. And so I'm gonna fuck it up because I'm gonna do these events where I'm gaining all these new people who are like, I never thought about dancing before. This
yeah,
was cool. Blah 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 blah. And that the whole reason why I'm fucking it up is because they all think I'm competing against them, but I'm not. I am literally, as I attract more people, or as Dance on the Edge attracts more people to Latin dancing, they're like, where can I go dance? And we're like, look at all these studios we know. Go there for the lessons. And so what really I'm doing is I'm fucking them up in the sense that they're looking bad, that they cannot market and attract new talents. But I'm supporting them too because I'm like, I don't want to teach any of you. Go to these studios because they taught me and they're good. It's just they don't know how to attract new talent.
yeah,
So I'm fucking it up in the sense that I am trying to change the way people think about building the community.
yeah. Dude, it's crazy. Well, first off, I think that's dope what you're doing because you are inviting a larger audience, which I think there's more people that don't know how to dance or that aren't involved in the space than there actually is. And right now that you're mentioning that, um, I've been in the situation before when I first started dancing where I wanted to kind of start getting into the community. And I went to a space, essentially, it was a different club that was at Sac State at the time. I forget the year, and I won't say any names with any of these because I don't want to put anyone, out there like that. But it wasn't welcoming when I got there because it essentially felt like this was for really advanced people. And I went there and I went once, never came back again. Recently, I have a friend who she's really involved with the dancing community, does a lot of things. She's a great dancer herself. She found out about this dance studio here in Sacramento, and she went to go check it out. She wanted, polish some of her skills, and she was telling me how she essentially felt really intimidated with what they were teaching because in a way they were kind of the way that they reached out to her was like, hey, come in and learn some dancing. But when she got there, it was like you kind of already it was super fast paced. Somebody that's a complete beginner, like I'm saying, she's experienced. So for her to have had found that challenging and struggled with that, imagine someone that's coming, barely new to it. I feel like if that's the case, instead of you wanting to get more involved, it really discourages you because it's like, well, I can't really dance. You get this idea that it's like that with anywhere you go, people are just super great dancers, and you're not gonna be able to be a part of that community because you're not as good as them. So it is a thing. That's definitely a thing. And right now that you're saying that, it really hit me like, oh shit, like yeah, we need more of that because there's a lot of people that want to get involved, but dancing is such an intimidating thing. if you feel, how many people don't you hear that's like, oh no, I have two left feet, or I don't know how to dance. And unless somebody really pushes them, or they go to an event like Dance on the Edge right now, where you start from scratch with the lesson, is like, then they won't really get out of that shell. So I think that's amazing that you're doing that. And I think I feel like Dance on the Edge has been that since it started, where it's like advertised for beginners. Come and dance, come with your family, come and just, have some fun. And then from there, maybe spark that little, that flame in some people, like, you know what, let me practice more and then go to those other more advanced studios, or where they're going to teach me with those specific lessons. So that's crazy. That's dope though. That I love that. I love that actually.
Yeah, man, thank you. And that's why I want to fuck it up. Like people who are excited to dance, like they want to, if they're not a serious dancer, meaning because there's a different mentality when you train and when you just want to take classes.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the way that some of these studios train people is that they're training them versus just teaching a class,
Yeah.
because they're in the mentality of, hey, we're going to compete, we're going to showcase, which is cool. It's just like, hey, if you want to retain, your customers, we need to find a way to meet the customers where they're at,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, dude, so that's where I'm at right now. That's the motivation. And for anyone who's kind of questioning if they want to stick to one industry or stick to one service or whatever, I recommend is over time you could stick in the same industry, just find different responsibilities in it, right? So if we look at my past, I originated as the guy who's was wanting to get better as a dancer myself, who wanted to just have places to dance, and then I became the guy that wanted to get other people to learn dancing, to teach workshops, and to host. And now I've transitioned into, let me actually change it up where I could show people how they could market themselves a little bit better, how they could get new customers, and how the city could get some tourism aspect out of this.
Yeah. Which
So it's all the same industry. It's
yeah.
just my role has changed.
Yeah. You've had like a full circle experience.
Yeah.
And it's cool what you mentioned too of how you are bringing more tourism to the city, because I know people that are coming literally from different cities, hours away, just for these.
2 hours away. We get tagged
Yeah,
a lot on our Instagram that they drive 2 hours away from Reno, from the Bay Area, from Fresno. They'll come up.
yeah. Was that's
Chico
amazing.
too. We get people from Chico as well.
Chico, man, yeah. And again, the dancing community is so big, and people, they love it, especially the fact that you make it a free event as well. I want to say that's a huge thing, because people are always looking for something. Some people are just walking by in Old Sacramento and they're like, hey, what's this going on? And the fact that you don't have a cover to get inside is like, boom, hey, let's walk in. And then again, next thing you know, one of those might have that experience that you had initially when you started getting involved, and then later down the line they're creating something, and it is like a little
Mhm.
snowball effect with all of that. So that's dope. But again, I feel like there's so much more that we can get into. So we might have to do a second episode just for a Dance on the
I'm
Edge, because
down.
there's other things that I want to get into as well of what you're doing. But let me just state that, dude, again, props for what you're all doing with Dance on the Edge. I think it has brought the dancing community here in Sacramento has grown so much. I want to say that has played a huge role in it. Something that I highlight when I tell people that I'm from Sacramento is these events in the summertime. I'm like, if you like dancing, you're trying to learn how to dance, so we have these Dance on the Edge events. So anybody that comes and visits that I've met throughout the university, I'll always like point them towards that direction. It's like, hey, go have some fun. Like Sacramento's a fun city, and that's one of the reasons why.
Thank
So
you.
again, I know it takes a lot of work to put these things together, and it's dope. I'm a local. I'm from Sacramento, so seeing these types of things in my city, I'm like, hell yeah, like come and check it out.
Right on, man.
But
Thank you.
that's dope. That's dope. So, but my next question too. So now transitioning away from Dance on the Edge. So you have your podcast as well, uh, Mindset Rebooted, and I know you have a co-host with that podcast as well. What was the initial motive behind that? Like, how is it that you came about creating a podcast, or why is it that you wanted to create a podcast?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna preface that I had a previous podcast that was called More But Chats, which was a dance focused podcast.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So the reason why I have this podcast is because I'm very big on podcasting overall.
Okay.
That's where I consume a lot of my information. besides podcasts or YouTube interviews. They're really the same thing. It's just
Mhm.
long form information that you get from other people.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on that. And then my co-host Sam Hay, his wife is Devaney Hay, and she actually is from this dancing community too. I met her at Sac State when she was a student there. And the way I met Sam was that Devaney would be invited to do a morning segment with Univision here in Sacramento, and she would ask me to co-teach with her.
I
And I
remember when
don't speak Spanish like that at all. So
yeah,
so you could find video of me just smiling at the camera and nodding along like a fool
I
because I don't know what they're saying.
I remember when you were on Univision and you had posted about this. I was like, okay, that's dope.
And so I was just like, I'm here to promote dance, bro. So like but because of that relationship with Devaney, because she loves to dance, she's a successful instructor with Arthur Murray now. Hit her up. Um, uh, I started meeting Sam, and he's a cool cat, dude. He's always thinking about how can we get better, whether that's business, faith, finance, family. Like he's always thinking about that stuff. And while he and I would, so for these Univision segments, they're like 6 a.m. or 5:30 a.m.
Mhm.
shows that we have to show up and record,
Yeah.
and and it's usually a weekday. So I would start work at 8, but if you're done with shooting at 6:45, you have like an hour and 15 minutes before you got to go to work. So we would go to a coffee shop and just chat in between between our the filming of the show and then going to our day jobs. And during those coffee chats is when we started talking about like, well, what are you interested in? And what I found was that me and Sam, we could have chit chat, but we tend not to really stick on chit chat. We get into more deeper conversations, and we get really big on personal development. We get really big on what are we trying to do to increase our financial resources? What are we trying to do to be the stable pillar for our families and stuff like that? And so that's how we started a podcast. Because I was pushing Sam to just start his own podcast. I was like, bro, start a podcast. But he was hesitant. And I was like, dude, just do a podcast with me. And then that's how it happened. We started in 2000, um, December 2019, and we've been recording since.
Okay.
Yeah.
December 2019 is when you started.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah,
So
so if you listen to our podcast, our first episode sounds so different from what the new ones sound.
yeah.
Because we took us about 18 months to figure out our rhythm. Like, because first off, I didn't really know Sam that well. I knew Dev more than him.
Okay.
And then from that, now we have a great relationship. I consider him one of my close friends that I could always rely on if I ever need anything. And yeah, so with your podcast too, bro, you think you stick with one format and then all of a sudden it'll change 18 months or 16 months from now
Yeah, yeah.
because you figure out different flows and different things that work for you.
Yeah, no, I think just like with anything else, over time you evolve, you find better ways to go about certain things, or just, naturally you flow towards other ways to going about something. So it's interesting to hear that, because with you, for example, that you started with somebody, creating the content and having these conversations. I think it could be a very different experience as well as doing this, just by yourself, and putting kind of what's in your brain out there. Which what I'm hearing from what you all were doing with your podcast was essentially how to become bigger, better, faster, stronger. Either
Yeah.
financially or and I've tuned into some of the episodes, and essentially, that's what I was hearing, just how to become a better person in different areas of your life. I know you touched on certain topics of, content creating, digital marketing. What was it? Digital marketing, essentially. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so a lot of these different things, and the reason why I wanted to ask you about your podcast, because I think it's always interesting that you have a common denominator of people who are wanting to create content, just to, or conversating, having conversations and putting it out there for other people, is that we all have something to share with others, where there's certain things that we know, or things that we have learned, or certain ways that we view specific things, that it's like someone can get something out of this. So it's like, if I'm able to help you and whatever it is with whatever it is that I'm putting out there, it's like, okay, cool, then let's go about that. So that's dope. That's dope that you have that platform as well, because again, I think that the stuff that you're doing outside of that helps you bring all of that in, and it gives you more validation of, hey, I'm telling you this because it has worked for me, or I'm doing this, and you can see that, it's working out. So that's dope.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff too, they just happened because I was interested in them.
Hmm.
And then because I did them long enough, I learned how to actually use them for some type of return on investment.
Yeah.
So like I learned marketing a lot from it. I learned how it, like you said, supports my position as an authority figure when other people first meet me and stuff like that. And I think that's very important. If in our podcast, the Mindset Rebooted podcast, you may notice that I tend to talk a lot of tactics and strategy because that's just how my brain works better.
Hmm.
Like I'm really bad with the philosophical, not linear thoughts.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
my brain doesn't work that way. So yeah, that podcast there, it's pretty much, hey, what's a lesson that we learned this week, or someone could teach us a lesson that we could use and apply it immediately to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to ever bring some like conspiracy conversations into there, or some more philosophical?
Probably not, not unless there's a lesson we could take away from it,
Mm.
right? Because if it's political in nature, I tend to stay away from politics a lot. But I will touch on it if there's some kind of repercussion that affects us in faith, family, finance, or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I there's certain topics that I also believe can just be very sensitive, even for the people having the conversation or the people listening to. So it's like, oh, okay, let me not.
Yeah. Well, it also depends on what you want to be known for,
Hmm.
right? So it's a branding thing as well.
Yeah.
So because in a marketing sense, no one could choose to support you if they don't know what you stand for.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I purposely created my brand to be where people know that I'm really big on personal development, on the small business side, on the dance side. That's what I'm known for.
Hmm.
And I've kind of kept it around there. Sometimes you'll see me tease some politics, but really it's not politics. It's like more of a just a layman's like idea of what's funny or something like that. Like I stay away from the politics because it's not something I want to associate to my brand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I hear you on that. So it's been over 3 years, I want to say now. You said end of 2019 that you essentially started creating the content with podcasts. What's something that you've learned from that you would advise people on? Whether that being somebody who is thinking about starting a podcast, or for myself, for example, that I'm just starting to create this content. What's something that is like critical for you to know? Because I'm sure there's like a full list of different things, but what are some of the most important ones that you're like, you should be careful with this, or you should go about it this way or the other? What comes to mind when I ask you that?
The most critical thing to know is that you will only fail if you stop.
Mm.
And this is not just for the podcast. This is also if you're trying to do your own business or trying to upskill for your own career and work somewhere else. If you stop, then you've lost all momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So to put into perspective, Dance on the Edge has hit this much awareness and marketing because we've been doing it for 5 years.
Mm.
The podcast has had the most podcast downloads now because we've been doing it for 3 years. And it's still relatively low, in my opinion, compared to other people's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But those other people's stuff too, when they first started, before they became famous, they were just as shitty. So, so if you want to succeed, just don't stop.
Yeah.
If you want to have a higher paycheck when you go to work, you just need to be a better and be in that industry a little bit longer and accumulate more knowledge, expertise, more wisdom and connections in that network, and you'll be more successful.
Yeah. So you gotta stick around long enough for it to work out.
Yeah, you got well. Okay, so we're gonna get into tactics, and I'm gonna credit Alex Hormozy
Mm-hmm.
because the way that he explains it is, I think, my favorite and easiest way to understand.
Yeah.
You're gonna suck when you first start. No matter what you do, you're gonna suck. And maybe you'll have one viral video or one viral thing, or you'll get hired out of the blue and you're like, oh, that was easy. No,
Yeah.
that was a fluke. You cannot have predictable success. It was all a fluke.
Hmm.
So to have predictable success, you need to do it for as long as you can and have quantity. You need to do it a lot. Do it a lot, a lot, a lot, and eventually you'll get good at it where
Yeah.
you could predictably say, yeah, that was a good podcast, or that was a good lesson I just hosted, or that was a good event. Now, once you reach good, you just have to do quantity with quality a lot. So you gotta combine them both.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you started off sucking, and in order not to suck, you had to do a lot of quantity, and then now you're at quality, and in order to get more attention and more success, you need to do more quantity of quality, and that's what helps you grow.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I hear that 100%, and I also see that a lot with, and I've seen it with different people where they'll start something and they have these expectations of how they believe it's going to be in the beginning, just super successful, whether that being a business or starting a podcast with the views, and that bubble more times than not is burst right off the bat of how good the performance is going to be initially, and that's where the discouragement comes in, and you just don't keep the ball rolling because it's like, well, uh, why am I going to keep trying if it's not working out? But you are just getting started. There's this oh, it just left my mind. I heard a quote somewhere. It'll come back to me, and I
Okay.
will and I will state it when it comes back. But yeah, it's just, I think that's a really important thing is just sticking around for it to work out, because initially when we get into something that's new, you're not going to be good at it, or it's going to take some time for it to catch some fire. So the people who have successfully done something, from what I've seen and read about, or people that I've met, is because they were around long enough for whatever it is that they were doing to get some momentum, and then finally get to what they initially thought it was going to look like. So yeah, that's really interesting that you're reiterating that essentially, with how you've gone about it, and it's, yeah, really important for, again, myself, getting that perspective of like, this could take some time. There might be 20, 30 people that are viewing this podcast, but hey, you know what, later down the line when we have that next episode, is like everybody's going to be tuning in. So we'll see. No expectations. Let's just go with it. If we help one or two people kind of, with the way that they look at certain things, or maybe getting something started, it's like, cool, we did our job. That was the goal. Um, but sweet. Okay, nice. So I think at the end we'll do a little shout out of like the different platforms that you have, so that people can tune into that. Probably even add it to the footnotes in some of these videos, so that they know where to find that information, whether that being Dance on the Edge and the podcast as well. Because I do want to go into the next topic with you, Romi, which is about your day job. I want to know a little bit more about this. I know the last time we were having a conversation regarding this, you were debating between a couple of different opportunities that you had, which you also have stated that there were some of the best opportunities that you've had in terms of, where you're at in your life and in your career, monetary wise and all of that. So I'm really interested in hearing, what the decision that you decided to go for.
Yeah. So those career opportunities were totally not event planning related or dance event related, right? So they're a totally different sector, and they were fantastic opportunities, which unfortunately never happened.
Okay.
So to answer that very quickly for you,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they didn't happen, and there's a number of reasons for why they didn't happen, my side and their side type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
but all good love to them. So what happened was I ended up going. I was trying to get away from event planning because I was over it. I in addition to the tech and opportunities, I had a lot of opportunities in event planning opportunities, which would be senior level event planning or event positions. But I noticed every time I would interview for these positions, I would answer those questions in a way that while I'm saying it in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to hire this guy. And I was like, why am I not answering these questions the way that I know they want me to answer?
Mm.
And I found out that I did not want to do event planning. at
Yeah.
all. Yeah. And then so a little bit of fast forward from there, I have someone I know as an event planner. I would purchase product off of him, apparel, clothing, event marketing, signage, marketing materials, all that promo stuff for events. And he told me like, hey man, like I have a lot of jobs, like in terms of he's a one-man show. And he's like, bro, I got too much in my pipeline. I don't have enough time to fulfill or meet with the people who are trying to earn my business. And he's like, do you want to help me with that? And it was all event related. So this is why I mentioned, hey, you could still stay in the same industry. You could just change your responsibility in the industry. And so now what I do is I help people find creative ways, not even creative ways in my opinion, because this is basic stuff, but in their eyes, it's creative ways to give an experience to people who go to their events.
Mm.
So if you're hosting a fair, a festival, a convention, like we take it for granted that there's signage everywhere. We take it for granted that there's going to be a swag bag that you get when you show up. We take it for advantage that you get the lanyard, your name on it, or maybe some apparel and all that other stuff, or even custom boxes for cookies and treats.
Yeah.
Those are things that people think is just, oh, that's just normal. But in actuality, there's a whole system set in place to provide that for your event planners. And what I've found out is that I've inserted myself to that system. So I'm considered a distributor for promotional products, marketing materials, print materials, all that jazz, which still isn't event planning. So to answer your question, I am technically a salesperson. Well, actually, the tech positions I was telling you were for sales as well,
Okay.
but I'm a salesperson for pretty much what event planners need, or even what regular companies need. Like they do their annual reports. That's technically an experience that you're trying to give people when they review what's going on for the department at the end of the year.
Hmm.
That's, even though it's a report, there's an experience that goes with that report. The printing, the material you get with it, the images that are shown on it. That's really an experience, because ideally you want the annual report to make you feeling good, like, all right, cool, we had a successful last year, so we'll use that momentum into the following year. So that's where I fell into, in addition to doing these events in the podcast.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And well, that's really cool. Like it sounds really cool what you're getting into. I think it's something different and new for you as well. A different way to tackle, a different angle from what you already been involved with when it comes to events. And what comes to mind right now too is that, because one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning with your intro as well is that you did go to college. You also received a bachelor's degree and you had that whole experience. And we kind of touched on that. You kind of touched on that in the
Yeah, I
beginning.
was a horrible student.
uh, but I think you'd be an example as well. And I even consider myself in that spectrum of how you went to college and got your degree in a specific space, but what you're doing now and what you've been doing even after that has been a little bit different than what you actually studied in college. So, and I bring that up because I know there's a lot of people who really stress out about that, whether they're in college right now and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do once I graduate? Whether that being they already graduated and they're in a space where that's not related to what they actually studied, and they stress out about that because it's like, well, oh my God, like I should be over there instead. So have you ever thought about, has that ever come to mind where you kind of feel guilty that you're not in your specific career path of what you studied in college?
Yes and no, because now that I've gone full circle, where for Dance on DX, the messaging is tourism, I've gone into that realm, right? Because it's
Yeah.
RPTA is tourism administration as well. But for a long time, people thought I had a business degree. Uh, and I'm a nerd. If you can't tell, I talk in nerdy wording and all that stuff. Like I read a lot of books,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I get really into these different terminology, these sales terms, marketing terms, and all that, because it's what I care about. I nerd about the things that interest me. And to answer your question, for the longest time, I was like, that degree was useless to me,
Mm,
because I don't need a degree to do what I do, to be honest. Like,
okay.
I believe unless you're in STEM, you don't necessarily need a degree.
Yeah.
Because if you're in business or finance, you could just do that, just get real world experience.
Hmm.
Boom, you're ahead of the game. And so really it's what is the lifestyle that you're looking for? And then from there, my advice for people who are still students is to take advantage of your status as a student. I tell them all the time, fuck up as much as you can. The reason why I want you to fuck up as much as you can is so that you can learn a lot more than the person who hasn't fucked up.
Yeah.
And because you're a student, people forgive you more too. So, and and here's an example. When I was in school, I told you I had part-time job. I was leader for these different clubs, and to me, I was a 21 unit student. So you had to like full max units per semester. Sometimes you have to get the approval to hit that max from a counselor, right?
Mhm.
I had two part-time jobs. I was club president. I was hosting monthly socials and then nightclubs, blah, 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 blah. So, and then I was sometimes at a certain point, I was on the rugby club team too. So it's just a packed schedule, right? And
Yeah.
so because I had a packed schedule, I learned a lot in terms of time management. I learned how to deal with stress. I learned how to work on projects, how to plan a lot faster than peers who were graduating at a similar age as me. So
Yeah.
when I went to Disney right after graduating as an intern, and I got there, and me and two of my other roommates, when I was there, we all were used to a 40-hour minimum work week, in addition to like 20 hours of extracurricular type of stuff, right?
Mhm.
But we were competing with people who said, man, I'm beat 32 hours, man. This was a long week. And we're looking at them like, what? You tired after 32 hours? What are you going to do today? He's like, oh, I'm just going to go to the post office, send some mail, do some laundry. And we're like, oh man, I am going to kick your ass when we compete.
Yeah.
I know so much more than you in terms of event planning or in terms of just emailing people overall or even doing a Google spreadsheet. Like, you got nothing on me. So if you're a student right now, take on as much experience as you can. Fuck up a lot. And so that when you graduate, or even before you graduate, you're already competitive to someone who's been in the real world, quote unquote, for 4 years because you have that experience.
Yeah. Interesting. So I'm hearing that the degree that you got didn't necessarily benefit you in a lot of ways, but it was more so again the experience of college and kind of like everything that you got involved with throughout that, which that includes the skills that you gained from that,
Yeah.
and just the connections that you might have made through college, and pretty much the whole package that comes with being a student, not just the certificate that you get at the end when you graduate.
Yeah. My biggest experience from college was the people I met, the dancing, and the work experience that I had in college.
Yeah.
The only thing academically I took away was tort, TORT. So that's for liabilities and stuff like that. There was
Okay.
one class about tort, and
Int-
I really picked up on that because I was already doing events,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I need to know about tort law because I was already working and doing my own events in college. I was like, oh, I gotta know about this because if someone falls down, who's liable, who could get sued, how do we protect ourselves from that? So that's the only thing I could definitively say I've used regularly since graduating.
Okay. Nice. All
Yep.
right. Well, right now, getting towards like the end of the episode for us, we're getting to the section. I'm calling these the big four right now. Well, that might evolve over time. Um, so four questions. The first one, what are three books and or podcasts that you would recommend to people? This could be a mixture of books and podcasts or a full set of just books or podcasts. You did mention that you read books, and I'm sure that a lot of the a lot of the knowledge that you get and apply into what you do comes from either podcasts or books. So I think these should give you some good recommendations that you're gonna give us.
Yeah. Is there any like specific
No,
utility you want out of these
what
books?
comes to mind, bro? It could be
Okay.
a
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first book I would recommend is Four Agreements. One of the easiest books to read. It's super. You can read it in one sitting, but the takeaway from it is just so simple to put into action, and
Classic.
it'll change the way that you interact with the world.
Okay.
Second book I would recommend is How to Win Friends and Influence People by
Okay.
Dale Carnegie. I forgot the name of who wrote Four Agreements, but Dale Carnegie wrote the How to Win Friends and Influence People. That book is great for learning how to actually interact with the world and get people to actually kind of like or respect you and get them to do things that you would want them to do without being manipulative. So that is another good book. And then in terms of podcasts, a lot of podcasts I currently listen to is very business oriented.
Okay.
But I would recommend right now, it's called The Game by Alex Hermosi. Alex Hermosi he's a top tier sales and marketing guy who bootstrapped his own company into multi-millions. He's over 200, him and his wife, Layla Hermosi, they have a portfolio of over $200 million as private owners.
Yeah, yeah.
So no investors, nothing like no angel funding. This is legit bootstrap company that they built, multiple bootstrap companies they built into the multi-millions. And his podcast, The Game, is really good in terms of tactics for sales and marketing, in terms of developing your business, as well as his life philosophy on why he does certain things. So those would be my three answers.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. I like that. I hadn't heard of the podcast from Alex, so I'm gonna have to check that out myself. Uh okay, second question. What's an advice that you would give your younger self? And in this sense, think of like a 17, 18-year-old Rami.
I would tell them to date more. It's
Okay.
funny because someone had to ask that question like 1 or 2 weeks ago. That's why it's top of my head.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, date more. Because so to put into perspective, I didn't grow up with a father.
yeah.
A single mother household, so I
Mm,
didn't really have that father figure or like a guy figure to show me how to navigate the world.
yeah.
So I would say date more so that you know how to socialize with other people better. Because
Okay.
if you can't socialize with other people, it's kind of harder if you're trying to get ahead in any career path or business that you're trying to
Yeah, yeah. Nice, nice. I like that. I like that. All right. So third question.
do.
How and this one right here, I find it to be a really big one because, like I mentioned in the beginning, everyone is so different and has such different outlooks on life and just perspectives. So for this question, how do you define success in your own life? What does success look like for you? That could
In
be
my own
current or if it's evolved over time. I know that that could be a big question, but um, I think this is a good opportunity for you to think about that for yourself, or maybe you already have it on the top of your head.
Yeah, yeah. So I would define success as you are living the lifestyle that you set out for yourself.
Mm,
So if you say that your lifestyle is, a lot of people say freedom. I want freedom, right? Well, freedom from what? And a lot of us who are from a poor background, when we say freedom, what we're thinking about is the ability to just go out, buy anything without having to worry about the bills at the end of the month. That's freedom for a lot of people, and I agree with that.
yeah.
So my answer is figure out what is the lifestyle you want, and then are you working towards that lifestyle? So freedom from financial burden or stress is your goal. Are you working to gain more skills to be a more valuable person in your company or for your business? Are you working to get more marketing and getting your face out so that people want to hire you or interview you? You may not necessarily have that paycheck that you want right now, but are you working towards that lifestyle that you want?
Mm-hmm. Nice. I love that. I love that response,
Thank
actually.
you.
Cool. All right. So, fourth and final question for you, Rami. If you could travel to any place in the world right now, expenses paid for, where would you go and why?
I would travel to whoever. So I would find the person who wants to give money to events, who wants to sponsor events, whoever has the biggest paycheck that wants to give the biggest money, and I would just go and meet up with that person and pitch them to sponsor my event and my company.
Okay. Interesting. That was a very different response to what I was thinking you were going to go. I thought you were going to say like, oh, vacation in Italy or something. But
No, no, no. See, that's where you may have I don't know. Why did you think that? Here, before I say my reasoning, why did you think that? Yeah.
I just when I think that's like a very broad question that even as kids is like, oh, where would you travel to? And right away we gravitate towards, well, I'd go to I don't know, Brazil because it looks like it's fun over there. or I would go to Thailand because they have animals over there and I want to go check that out. So with this question, it was kind of me just trying to like spark that in people of like, hey, man, what comes to mind? What's something that you had as a childhood was maybe
Mm,
something that you were trying to visit? But I find that really interesting. And I think that's dope. The question that you answered, it just shows where your mind is at right now. So again, these are open-ended questions.
yeah.
So I actually like, I think that was even better than what I was expecting. Not expecting necessarily, but kind of what I thought was going to be your response to that.
Yeah, well, remember your question was, what does success mean to me? My answer was, you're doing something that will go towards the lifestyle you want.
Hmm.
So part of my lifestyle is the financial freedom, as
Yeah,
well as having a big company that does lots of big events that is cash flow positive.
yeah.
So if you're telling me you're gonna give me why do billionaires have airplanes? To buy time to meet with other people so they can do business with each other.
Hmm.
It's not for vacation. It's to build their business or build the lifestyle that they want.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw that question is because why would I take a vacation if I want to fuck up the industry?
Yeah.
You're gonna tell Elon to take a vacation?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for people who have certain lifestyles as their goals.
Boom.
And
See,
I'm not saying it's wrong if someone wants to go on vacation either.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
See, but look, again, a reminder of why it is that I want to do these podcasts, Robin, because everybody's mind is so different and it's so catered towards again what you're focused on and what you want to do. So I'm now even more interested with that of asking that question to the future guests because this in a way it caught me by surprise, but it gave me a reminder of like, hey, there's people are just so different and it's super dope to see that again for myself. Even now I'm thinking about that very in a very different way. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I think that was dope. That was dope.
Yeah. Well, here, let me ask you that. Let me flip it on you. So, where would you go if all expenses were paid? You could travel and meet up with anybody. Where would you go?
Oh man. So see, for me, that the response to that question is going to be very different. Personally, right now, where I'm in my life, I find traveling to be a passion of mine, and more so in the sense of just discovering the world. You know, seeing different cultures, meeting different kinds of people, um, seeing the different kind of food that people eat, the lifestyle that people have in different countries. So to be honest with you, I don't have a specific place in mind. At one point, Peru was my dream destination, which I got to go there last year. That's the only country that ever since I was a little kid, I was really excited to, well, not excited to go to, but it was my dream to go there. Once I checked that off my bucket list, now I'm just really open to go anywhere. And my plan is to really travel to as many places as I can, during the time that I'm alive. So again, my response to that question is really just everywhere. Like I want to go everywhere. Like I'm
Yeah.
down to go to any country. I'd love to, and I plan on doing so. So the things that I'm currently doing right now when it comes to finance and all that, that's one of the big motives. I want to travel. I love traveling. That makes me feel alive. That makes me feel, a sense of fulfillment that I'm getting to see all these different kinds of people. Because again, I love how people are so different. So yeah, that's my response to that.
I have a follow-up question for you if
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
okay. So, my follow-up question is, what you just explained to me, you would use this free genie as a one-time use. Why not think about how can you have multiple genies and find that person who wants to hire you and pay you to travel the world?
Yeah, that's definitely that's a um that would be ideal, I want to say. So
Yeah,
next,
and I'm just asking these questions to really like challenge your thought process because I heard it's a one-time use from you. Just fly, go work to that one place you want to go, and then after that you'll figure it out.
yeah,
Whereas, like right now, my thought is why not go to the person who could fund this, could build your business, and be willing to trust you to build a business and go travel the world.
there you go.
Why
So
why not expand it? Why not why only focus on one? And you don't have to answer that question. This is a rhetorical question for
yeah,
whoever else is
100%.
listening.
There you go. See, and I was gonna say, and that applies to other people. Now you have a different way of thinking about that yourself. If ever it is that I invite you on, now you have some time to think about it before I ask that.
Don't tell them. Oh, okay, maybe they'll listen to it before they get on, and then I'm
Right?
like, dang, like keep it as a secret.
I
Nah.
know, right? We're trying to keep it as a secret. We're gonna have to cut that part out. No, definitely not. No, that was great. I'm telling you, dude, that was dope. That was dope. You even got me thinking about it. And I'm like, oh damn. But cool. Well, Rami, I want to say that it was great having you on, man. As I mentioned, you were one of the first people that came to mind when I started thinking about this new project of mine of just creating this platform of sharing with other people what it is that individuals such as yourself are doing with their life, you know, in the community in general. I think what you're doing is dope again, what you're doing with Dance on the Edge, the platform that you have with your podcast, you know, the way that you're exploring these different areas in career wise. And I think, you know, you're getting the ball rolling with a lot of things for yourself in your life. So I think it's dope. This is the chance where I do want to open it up for you to share different platforms where people can either follow you, whether that being yourself. If people have questions, you know, about something that we talked about today or Dance on the Edge, you know, give yourself a shout out right now, my guy.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. All the other platforms, you won't really get much out of me. LinkedIn is where I'm open to connecting.
Yeah.
Romi Sunga. I'm Romi Sunga on all platforms, but LinkedIn is where you'll have a better chance of actually, if I don't know you, where we'll actually talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also, if you want to check out Dance on the Edge, it's danceontheedge.com, and you'll find all the social media links on that website. The podcast, Mindset Rebooted, we're on all podcast platforms. And then if you also need some stuff for your own events, clearprinting.net. Just fill out a quote request there, and I'll help you out, or we could just chit chat about making some events fun for people.
Oh, look at that. It's already making some partnerships. So y'all heard it. Go and connect with Rami on LinkedIn. I'm actually going to add the different links for the social media for Dance on the Edge and those. So for people to
Yeah,
go
for
and
sure.
check that out. I'm sure there's people that are barely finding out about this. And I think you definitely need to go check it out. If you're listening from outside of Sacramento, come through, especially right now in the summer is when it starts popping. So let's go and do that. But with that being said, Rami, thanks again, bro, for coming on. I think it was a great conversation. I personally got to learn a lot more from yourself, and I'm sure people are going to get a lot from this. Um, and I'm sure we'll be doing a part two because I think there's a lot more that we could talk about and that we could share with the world.
I am, and there's a lot to talk about. Thank you again so much for inviting me on as your first guest, brother. Congrats on the podcast.
Appreciate that, man. Well, we'll talk soon and have a good rest of the Sunday. And you did mention you were having a lazy day, which that's dope. I think Sundays is one of those days to kind of just reboot and get ready for the week.
Right on.